ever been to a Cracker Barrel? Because there's really nothing like it. And as long as that's said in a positive way, that's a good sign for the business.
Who eats Cracker Barrel? I love Cracker Barrel, but I've never... I don't ever see anyone there. Besides church Sundays, when do you see people there? What, you tell me you on a Friday night, oh, yeah, hey, bro, let's go to Cracker Barrel. No one ever says that.
Definitely more of a southern thing, but they're located all over the U.S. Here's the location finder on their website. As of September of 2018, there's 655 of them in 46 states. I found generally, if you click on what's considered more of a southern state, like Georgia, you get more locations than if you try somewhere else. Like, for example, California only has 2. They actually only got their first locations there last year, but it's not a perfect rule. I would actually view the whole concept of this place a little confusing if I didn't already know about it. For anyone watching this that's unfamiliar with Cracker Barrel, here's a picture of one. I think we can all agree it's representative of a typical location. What do you think this looks like? I mean, it has to look like a store, right? Not a restaurant. It says
Old Country Store, yeah, but it's a store instead of a restaurant. Because how they have it set up is to where you have all the goodies and everything like kids and adults would want in the front, with the food and dining service in the back, making you more likely to buy from the front and literally just make you want to waste more money.
store. Well, it's both, but mainly a restaurant. They're really relying on you already knowing this. The store portion generated 20% of their sales last year, and the restaurant was the other 80%. In the store, you can buy gifts and cookware.
Exactly. Because it's where they have it. If you have it in the front, more people are going to want to buy from the front.
And dinnerware, it generally has this old country aesthetic. It's the old country store, and the food has the same theme. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The menu items are generally these hearty, home-cooked type meals, country fried steak and meatloaf and grits.
Hey, their food is cheap, though. It's not cheap anymore because it's 2023, but back in the day, bro, I could go there, get a whole steak, mashed potato, mac and cheese, and a drink for $12. Bro. Now I'd get that for $40. But I mean, still.
Bro. You get grits there. They also create the whole old country atmosphere. There's wood everywhere and fireplaces, rocking chairs, checkerboards. They have these little peg games at the tables. You get the point. And then
I hate playing those, bro. It's so addicting, but it's so hard to get one left.
A few other things about Cracker Barrel that may help give you an understanding of their business. In 2018, average check per guest was $10.48, which is up 2.5% from last year. They serve an average of 6,900 restaurant guests per week. The largest category of items sold in their retail store in 2018 was apparel and accessories, followed by food, decor, toys, and media. They sell an average of 4,100 different items in their store at any given time, and then none of their locations are franchised, meaning the company fully owns every location. The thing that interests me the most is how they attract their customers. Have you ever been driving down the highway and seen one of these signs that says Cracker Barrel?
I've seen that for Buc-ee's and even gas stations. I'll see it for a Cracker Barrel when I'm heading towards Tennessee, but I mean, still.
Miles away. Well, that's how they get their customers. Unlike any other popular restaurant that I can think of, they're far more interested in attracting the people passing through the town than attracting the people who live in the town. Their largest form of advertising is these signs. They have 1,600 billboards, which makes up one...
Question. Who is the old guy there sitting in the chair? And why does their logo look like a big bean? Like a big jelly bean? Is it just me, or am I just tilting my head wrong?
third of their annual advertising budget. On their website, they predominantly feature this section about tour groups that talks about group sales and group gift cards. There's all these rules about how group sales work. They're clearly trying to attract groups of travelers. 83% of their stores are located along interstate highways, which leads us to how they got started. It involves a man named Dan Evans, who you have to admire his business sense. I'm actually impressed by the entire Evans family. His uncle was a congressman in Tennessee for 15 terms. His grandfather started an oil company, and that's sort of how Cracker Barrel came to be. This was in the late 1960s when Dan Evans worked for his family's oil company as what's called an oil jobber, which is a very industry-specific term. He essentially acted as the middleman between the people who refine the oil and the people who sell the oil. Specifically, there were some Shell stations in Lebanon, Tennessee, and he would work to provide them with their gasoline. The issue that these stations were having is that they were in less than ideal locations. See, the newer interstate and highway systems were eliminating traffic from all of the other roads in town. These gas stations that used to serve the locals and the people passing through were now just serving the locals. If you've ever seen the Pixar movie Cars, it's the same thing. So looking at
If you put a gas station at the end of an interstate, like when someone's coming into your state or into town, that gas station is going to make more money because it's people coming in from another place needing gas. That is more likely to get a gas station money than having directly in town.
Lebanon, Tennessee for a second. It's not far from Nashville, and it's connected to it by Interstate 40 over here. If you're traveling through the south, Interstate 40 is an attractive option because it connects a lot of the major cities. It's obvious. If you want to build a gas station in Lebanon, Tennessee, do it close to this road. Now, Dan Evans could have done just that, and I would imagine it would be successful, but he started thinking a few steps ahead. There were plenty of other gas stations along the interstate, so how could he make his different? How can he convert his gas station as opposed to all the others? I think you know where this is going. His idea was to build not only a gas station, but also a restaurant and a gift shop. Just think about that. Have you ever been on an interstate? Most of the signs that you see are for restaurants and gas stations, and since most of your customers are travelers, the gift shop just makes sense. Pick up some souvenirs. Also keep in mind, Cracker Barrel isn't exactly the fast food type of restaurant you typically see along the highway, so that further differentiates them from all the other stops. And just a side thought, you also see a lot of signs for motels. He didn't get involved in that, but if Cracker Barrel ever wanted to expand into something a little different, that might not be a bad place to look. So that's what he did. He borrowed $40,000 and built it over here on Highway 109 just off Interstate 40. It was a perfect high traffic location and said to be profitable within its first month. Anyone with experience starting a small business should really be able to appreciate that. And it gets more impressive.
Like I said, if you build it off of an interstate or a highway, you're gonna get more service from people coming in or out of the town.
You can tell that Dan Evans was eager to expand the business because after 1 year, he sold a half of it for $100,000, and he used the money to open a second location. Now, initially, that seems like a strange decision to sell half the business so quickly, especially since it was so profitable. It wouldn't have taken long to generate the money he needed to expand through the normal course of business. I suspect he did it because he felt the need to act fast before the competitors either copied his idea or occupied all the good locations along the highways, or maybe he just wanted to help out some of the other people in town by getting them involved. Most of the early investors were friends of his, but whatever his thought process, it worked. After 5 years of business, they were up to 10 locations, all of them profitable, and all of them near highways. Early on, they learned that the gas station part of their business was the least profitable, which would make sense to me, being the thing that's most like other businesses. Then, in 1973, there was this massive oil crisis, and
I get it, but gas is also expensive. As of right now, it's like $3.29. Back then it's like, I don't know, $1.30. Lucky them. But still, now, like, I get it, you're trying to get away from gas and just make it into more of a restaurant, but still.
Them to start focusing much more on the restaurant and the store, and they eventually phased out the gasoline part of their business altogether. After which, they continued growing without much trouble. In 1981, they became a public company. By 1990, they had almost 100 locations, mostly in the southeast, and $200 million in sales. Then there was a controversy. It was a big one that surprisingly didn't even hurt their sales much. It may have actually helped them. But this video would be incomplete without mentioning this. It's important and it's such a big part of their history. I'm only going to talk about it briefly here, and I recommend you learn more about it to get the full story, but this was policy to no longer employ gay people right away.
What? I'd get it if it was trans people or someone trying to be like a furry, like, hey mom, can I go outside in this furry costume? No! Get some common sense, but gay people? Is it because they were acting too much like fashionistas or what? I don't...
The decision was met with massive protests, so they quickly changed it, but holy cow. Dan Evans was still the CEO at the time and supportive of the policy. The whole thing is just crazy. Since I don't want you to think I'm exaggerating anything or putting a personal spin on it, I'll just show you a few parts of articles published around this time. From the Los Angeles Times, the chain recently issued a policy that cited traditional American values and declared that it is perceived to be inconsistent with those of our customer base to continue to employ individuals in our operating units whose sexual preferences fail to demonstrate normal heterosexual values which have been the foundation of families in our society. Oh, that sounds so terrible. From the New York Times, it said it would no longer employ homosexuals and at least 9 gay employees were dismissed. Here's a quote from one of the kitchen workers who was fired at that time. They said they didn't really want to fire me because the policy was really aimed at effeminate men and women who have masculine traits who might be working as waiters or waitresses. All of this was legal at the time, and as I said, the backlash motivated them to quickly change the policy. I don't want to spend more time on this. It's not the focus of the video, but they've had this type of criticism ever since, and there have been others. Surprisingly, there's really no direct evidence of this hurting the company. Sales and profits actually went up through all of this and continued going up from there. Let's get away from
You kid. I mean, huh? How would that not affect the company? This was in 91, 92. I mean, but like, bro, something that controversial today would just get you canceled. I guess back then they just didn't really care.
Throughout the 90s, they started expanding much more aggressively. By 1993, their revenue was nearly 2 times larger than any other family restaurant. Then in 1995, they hired a new president with the intent of using his experience to further grow the business, which worked because in 1997, they exceeded $1 billion in sales. Looking at them today, on average, they're doing better than the rest of their industry. Over $3 billion in sales. So essentially tripling in size over the past 20 years and generally increasing every year recently. And their income has been going up too. Their comparable store sales have taken a bit of a dive over the past couple years, actually falling into the negative on the retail end. But let's not get too concerned with recent performance. Let's look at the big picture. This is undeniably a successful company. And sure, their success comes from a lot of things that you would expect from any restaurant. Prices and menu items and service. But more importantly, their success comes from factors that you don't see often. How many industry-leading restaurants are found almost exclusively along highways? How many have a strong theme?
Most of the gas stations. Like, that's legit all compared. But like tiny cities and gas stations.
Expect to be tacky and fake, but in my experience, I'd say they pull it off pretty well. And how many have a store attached? That's 20% of their business. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this business? I mean, do you think all these things that make them unique are enough to keep them?
I think Cracker Barrel is good, but I just don't ever go often.